What's up, folks? We've got a jam-packed episode of Carving Up Live for you on this Tuesday night. Going to start, obviously, with Game 3 of the Finals. San Antonio's back in this thing, and they can thank arguably the best player in the world, Victor Wembanyama. What I was most impressed with his and the San Antonio Spurs performance in order to get back into the series, now down 2-1. As for the Knicks, there's been a lot of chatter, a lot of conversation, in some cases from the Knicks themselves about, officiating. This is, what got us in the hole throughout multiple points of the second half. I think it's BS. I think it's nonsense. I'll get to why that is in about 10, 15 minutes or so. Also get into this really just mind-boggling situation regarding Brandon Sorsby, the quarterback at Texas Tech, the gambling scandal going on. He's going to be allowed to play college football in 2026. I think exposes a big, big hole, arguably the biggest one that has plagued the NCAA for a very long time. Also get to Joe Burrow, restructures his contract with the Cincinnati Bengals. Will it actually lead to tangible success for Cincinnati this season? Remains to be seen. I'll get into why I don't think that'll be the case later on. And at the end of today's show, obviously, predictions for Game 4 of the 2026 NBA Finals. Do we have a 2-2 series going back to San Antonio, or do the Knicks take a commanding 3-1 lead? So we've got a jam-packed episode of Carving Up Live. So let's drop the beat, baby. Here we go. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving Up Live right here on YouTube, as well as on Facebook, Twitch, X, and on Instagram. I'm Bryson Carver. It's great to be with you on this Tuesday. Normally, we do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but because of the schedule of the finals, this week it's going to be Tuesday and Thursday, so a little bit of a weird rescheduling. We'll be back to our normally scheduled programming next Monday following Game 5. Now that we know that we are going to be getting a Game 5, very excited for how this finals continues to progress. You heard the intro. Let's get right into business. But first, we got a finals now, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a 2-1 series in favor of the New York Knicks, and I think Victor Wembanyama, he's going to be the story of just about every game when it comes to the San Antonio Spurs. But what I thought was absolutely remarkable about what he did last night. Let's show you the numbers, and then let's get into the performance beyond just the numbers, because the numbers themselves, quite impressive. 32 points, 8 rebounds. He gave you 6 assists, which is high for Wemby. 3 blocks. That's, just another day at the office for him. But 11 of 18 for the field, 2 of 4 from downtown, 8 of 9 from the free throw line. So he hit his free throws in this game. I thought what was absolutely remarkable about Wemby is that right off the bat, you saw the aggressiveness. You saw him absolutely just attack the hole. I mean, the fact that he only took 4 3-pointers in this game, one of them, it should have been 3 for 5, but one got waved off because of an overturned foul on Keldon Johnson for pushing a Nick into Wemby. But you saw right off the bat, attacking the basket, catching lobs, right? Like position himself down low, winning that one-on-one matchup with Karl-Anthony Towns, or trying to find a mismatch down low with a smaller Nick, or at least smaller than Cat. I thought he was sensational. And if you're a Spurs fan today, there's an element of, okay, Game 2 wasn't going very well for us the second half. We're down 14. We make the late rally and then just kind of come apart at the end. Is there an element of, hey, Wemby, after getting does the Charles Barkley curse hit again? Charles Barkley's like, hey, he's getting his ass kicked by a Cat at halftime. And then second half, he drops 22 and wills them back into that basketball game along with De'Aaron Fox to almost win Game 2 before the mistake, obviously, late. Is it possible? Is it on the board that, hey, maybe he figured out the Knicks, or maybe it was just a matter of just scoring down low more? I mean, that's what a lot of folks discussing the series have been saying, is that, yeah, we know you can shoot the 3, Wemby. Like, that's part of what makes you an alien. That's part of what makes you just this unseen basketball talent in the history of the game. But you also 7'5", right? Like, you're somebody who can score. I don't want to say necessarily at will. This isn't like a Shaq situation, but I mean, Cat is what, 6'11" at most? I mean, that's a 6-inch height advantage, and obviously a massive length advantage to be able to gain positioning and win those one-on-one matchups. Wemby looked comfortable. Wemby looked at ease, and it's what you see from the all-time legends in these spots, back against the wall. Listen, Game 2 at the end. This is the I said this on Saturday morning show. The really cruel thing about sports sometimes, man, is for the greats. We've done this with LeBron. We've done this with Steph. We're doing it now with women. I'm talking about the all-time top 10 in the history of the game guys. They can have an A+ awesome basketball game. If they have a brutal last minute, that's what we talk about. Anytime LeBron has had maybe like a late turnover or missed a shot, LeBron's not clutch, even though he leads the NBA playoffs all time in buzzer beaters. Steph Curry, not clutch, even though he's led teams to a championship 4 times and is the face of the most recent dynasty in the NBA. Wemby, fell apart late, which he did. We said on the show, Stephon Castle didn't make a mistake there. That was on Wemby. But he's still a phenomenal second half. And you saw sort of the ease and the comfort. We'll get into the controversial play with Jalen Brunson, whether he should be assessed a flagrant one after the fact. But the fact of the matter is, after he shoves Brunson to the ground, he's laughing. And we've seen that through multiple times. I remember talking about it in the Western Conference Finals against the Thunder. If he blocks a shot or bodies somebody, dunks on somebody, he's laughing at him. Like, he's just having a blast out there. He's the ultimate competitor. He's got that dog, that mean streak in him. And that's what you want out of the superstars of the NBA. So I thought Wemby was absolutely sensational. And the thing that we talk about with the great stars, especially the two-way players, because we know Wemby's the best defensive player in basketball. That goes without saying. Unanimous DPOY, it's never been done before until him. Is that in the minutes, how many minutes did Wemby play last night in this game? Wemby played 39 minutes. In all 39 minutes, you sense his presence on the floor. Whereas in the last two games, particularly the first 6 quarters, all of game 1 and the first half of game 2, you always felt his presence as you always do on the defensive end, where the Knicks are just not even sniffing the paint if he's down there. But on offense, he seemed to be uncomfortable. We talked about in this show, and it remains the case. He's not a very good mid-range shooter. There was the stat that I think that we talked about on Saturday morning show, that in the last 30 years, no one has ever taken more mid-range shots than he has in a postseason and shot a worse percentage. He's shooting coming into last night 25% on mid-range. He's got to get better, especially as somebody who has such a physical advantage to just shoot over guys. Everywhere else did whatever he wanted. And there's an element, we'll get to Cat's performance later on, because he really struggled offensively, but defensively, it may not even be a knock on Cat. Some of it is, as great Mark Jackson says, great offense beats great defense any day of the week. Wemby kept winning those matchups and set the tone right off the bat on offense. And I think, listen, with that Madison Square Garden crowd, with the hype and anticipation, the buzz, and the Inside the NBA guys are talking about when Brunson's leading the Knicks on the court for pregame warmups. So he's like, man, Charles was like, I got goosebumps right now. The atmosphere was as incredible as we could have imagined that it would be. But it did feel like the Knicks, a little tight, a little bit, trying to live up to the expectation of that MSG crowd. Haven't won a championship in 53 years. They're starving for one. And the Spurs felt like the team more at ease. That was the shocking thing. That's why I picked the Spurs to win this series in 7, and I'll be frank, I called them dead after game 2. I'm like, listen, no team has ever lost the first 2 games at home and won the series. Or I should say won an NBA Finals. Back in 93, Barkley's Suns did it, lost the first 2 games of the finals, didn't come back to win. And then Shaquille O'Neal's Magic, that was Nick Anderson game 1, lost the first 2 games against the Rockets, ended up getting swept. So it's never been done before, losing the first 2 games at home, winning the title. That being said, there were elements of that basketball game last night where it was, maybe the Spurs did kind of figure things out. And that's the beautiful chess matchup between 2 teams that, man, the games have kind of borne themselves out pretty evenly matched. I mean, we're 3 games in. All 3 games have come down to the final minute. All 3. Game 1, Jalen Brunson kind of takes over late, hits a big corner 3, hits kind of the dagger fadeaway shot. Game 2, it's a back-and-forth affair after the Spurs come back. Wemby makes a big mistake, and the Knicks survive. And then last night, it looked like it was trending maybe in the direction of the Knicks again. Up 4 of the Spurs. Wemby is in a torture chamber, kicks it to Stephon Castle, and Castle, who's not that good of a 3-point shooter, hits what I know was a 7-point game with a minute 50. That felt like the dagger. That felt like it was, this is a 2-1 series. Spurs are back in this. And Wemby talked after the game, by the way, about kind of the mentality for him to, hey, let's not overreact. It's a long series. First to 4, not first to 1. This is what Wemby talked about after game 3.
You said after last game that things weren't clear. And tonight, it seems like you play with a lot of clarity. What have you done these last few days, in New York, to try to get your mind clear, and how did that help you for tonight?
Really try to relax. The playoffs is like I've never said that word, a whirlwind. It's like, it's hard to put your head out of the water, and sometimes it's like, I don't even gotta watch the game back right away. I just need a little time off, let my brain cool down, and recover as much for the body as for the mind.
And you saw him there was a picture of him in New York yesterday. I don't know if he was at Central Park or wherever he was at, where he was like drawing a picture of, he said there was like a statue he saw in the park, and he was like drawing a picture of statue, like just totally at ease. And there's obviously been a lot of discussion with Wemby visiting the monks during the offseason, and all of these sort of, not just physical training did with Hakeem and Kevin Garnett, but sort of the internal and spiritual sort of journey that he's been on, and has been open and vocal about that. I think you saw that kind of manifest itself last night, and really over the course of this playoffs. I mean, let's be honest, the Spurs, to varying degrees, this has not been an easy playoff run. I mean, this is a young team. Like, really, it shouldn't be in the finals if we're talking about just the overall experience. Round one against the Portland Trailblazers, Wemby goes off in game one, concussed in game two, misses game three. It's like, oh my gosh, it's a 1-1 series. Are the Spurs going to kind of be in trouble here? Nope. Win from there, gentleman's sweep. Round two, they lose game one to the Timberwolves, end up winning the series in 6. Obviously, the Western Conference Finals, they're down 2-1 at home in game 4, win. Down 3-2, have to win 2 elimination games. They do that as well. So every single test that they face, every test that Wemby has faced, they pass with flying colors. And that was, if you're a Knicks fan, there's plenty of reason to be optimistic. We'll get to the Knicks in just a moment. But if you are a Knicks fan, the one thing I think you should be nervous about is, okay, Wemby, game 1, looked uncomfortable. Great on defense. That's just a given. But he was 6 of 21, could not get the shots that he wanted to get. Cat won that one-on-one matchup, didn't look comfortable. Game 2, first half, same thing, even worse, arguably. But second half, oh, there's Wemby. And then all of game 3, oh, there's Wemby. Guy can give you 30 points on efficient, of course, efficient shooting, 7-5. Dominate down low the way that he has. That should make Knicks fans at least teensy bit nervous, just a little bit. And I also thought for the Spurs, I said this last night on my short post-game reaction video on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. It was kind of fitting that it was the two guys that were a part of the collapse. I know there were some people blaming Stephon Castle. Oh, he's a point guard. He's got to go back and get the ball in the final seconds with a tie game. Wemby brings the basketball up every single defensive rebound. The Spurs have been playing that way all season. Why in God's name would they go different in that spot? But the two guys that were a part of that late turnover in game 2, Wemby, we already talked about him doing what he did, and Stephon Castle was just ice. I mean, for start to finish, like just some tough finishes down low against context. Sometimes they called a foul, sometimes they didn't. Late, obviously, the bailout 3, which when Wemby kicked the ball out to Castle, late shot clock. Again, Spurs are up 4. It's like, oh boy, this could get really, really dicey for the Spurs. And it's just with full confidence, he knocks it down. I was shocked because Castle's not that good of a three-point shooter. Nailed it. And then obviously the 2 clutch free throws at the end to ice it. I was blown away by Castle. And I mean, it's again, long-term, man, far beyond this finals. We know Wemby's going to be great. Like that. He's already great. Might be the best player in the world right now. But those 2 guards, Dylan Harper was 5 of 18 last night, but the progress he's shown from the start of the season to the playoffs, the comfort there, and then Castle, rookie of the year a year ago, and then stepping up in this spot the way they did, blown away by what I saw last night from the San Antonio Spurs. Got a comment here. Good timing, actually, on this comment. Stat Keeper D, that's my man Dylan. What's up, Dylan? Joining a little late. Have you touched on the officiating in Game 3? Well, I'm telling you, Dylan, that is as perfectly timed a comment as we've had in the history of the show. So I appreciate you stopping by. That's actually exactly what we're going to be getting into. So let's touch on the New York Knicks because, I mean, through big portions of this game and really game 2, if we're being honest, I didn't feel like I was watching football or basketball. I didn't even feel like I was watching football. I felt like I was watching something that maybe Dan Campbell of the Detroit Lions could tell us something about.
Kneecap.
I mean, was that Detroit Lions in week 5 or was it against the Bears or something? Or was that the NBA Finals? So there's been a lot of buzz about the officiating and where a lot of it stemmed from is the controversial play first half. The 2 best players in the series colliding, Victor Wembanyama, Jalen Brunson. We can show you that play right now, I believe. So, I mean, there's no 2 ways about it. Wemby just shoves Brunson over. And Brunson looked like he wanted to retaliate. And then, as Jalen Brunson can tend to do, is like, let's, show a little bit of restraint here. But yeah, Wemby just shoves Brunson over, actually kind of laughs at him after it's over. And so there's a lot of buzz and controversy about should that have been a flagrant foul. Listen, on this play individually, I don't even think it's debatable. Like, that was obviously a flagrant foul. There was a lot of folks discussing the Stephon Castle and Jalen Brunson collision. I'm completely fine with them not calling that a flagrant one. Completely fine. Is that Brunson's is in a legal guarding position. It's absolutely obviously a foul on Castle. I didn't think that went to, that went beyond a basketball play. We see stuff like that happen pretty often, particularly in the playoffs when it's more physical. Beyond that, though, I did find myself, listen, I want to say this full transparency before we get to the Mike Brown quote and the Mike Brown soundbite. I did not think the game was well officiated last night on both sides. Knicks fans, because they're the team that lost, and the Knicks head coach, man, y'all know I love me some Mike Brown. I'm wearing my 2017 Warriors championship shirt today. 2017, maybe you can see that. Mike Brown coached the Warriors throughout the majority of that playoff run because Steve Kerr was dealing with the back problems. Love me some Mike Brown. But Mike Brown, Knicks fans are, oh my gosh, we were robbed by the officials. We're going to play the Mike Brown quote right now. This is what he said after the game.
First of all, I want to make sure I get something clear. Coach Mitch Johnson and the Spurs, they won the game tonight. They came and took the game. But I will say this, I never thought I'd be in the NBA Finals and see a team get 24 free throw attempts in the second half to another team's 8.
The only thing I'll say in Mike Brown's defense is that I think I saw a stat today that in the not the shot clock era, in the play-by-play era, there's never been in a half of an NBA Finals game a 24-8 free throw discrepancy. That's never happened. So, I mean, the Knicks, or rather the Spurs, made more free throws than the Knicks attempted in the basketball game. So that was a conversation. That was a story. With that being said, was it officiated poorly? Yes. Do the Knicks have legitimate gripes? Yes. I actually looked at the shot chart in the second half. The Knicks, by the numbers, the Knicks had 17 attempts in the painted area. Spurs had 13. So, like, it wasn't just a matter of, oh, the Spurs got to the basket more, therefore they got fouled more, and the Knicks just relied on a bunch of jumpers. That's not the case. Based on the second half shot chart, Knicks won the shot attempts in the paint battle 17-13. With that being said, because that's a legitimate gripe. As far as the game itself, oh my gosh, there's a conspiracy. The NBA is wanting to extend this series because a sweep is bad for business. Okay. Then why didn't they call Cat in this game? How many fouls did the Karl-Anthony Towns commit? 4. It looks like he committed 8. I mean, he is grabbing Wemby above the shoulders, grabbing his arms every single time in the half court when San Antonio's on offense. I mean, Wemby shot 9 free throws. I feel like he should have shot at least 15. I mean, Cat, we love him, and he's played great in this series prior to last night, obviously, and has played great defense. At the same time, man, we know a big sort of bugaboo for his career gets into foul trouble a lot. Going back to Minnesota, I remember some of that Western Conference Finals in particular against Dallas 2 years ago, his last year in Minnesota. Man, it was a lot of quick 2 fouls in the first 3 minutes, and now it messes up his rhythm. The Timberwolves rotation is out of whack. That's kind of to a degree what happened last night, although it wasn't with Cat, it was with Mikal Bridges. And Mikal Bridges, who started, red hot in game 2, had an excellent game offensively, 4 points on 5 shots. My bad. Sorry, 2 points on 5 shots because he picked up the 2 fouls early, couldn't get into a rhythm. So when Mikal Bridges scores 2 points, and Karl-Anthony Towns, we can show you his numbers, does not play well. He has 11 points, 8 rebounds, 1 assist, which is well down for what he's done in this postseason. He feels like it's 4 to 5 assists. I mean, easy for this guy, the way he's been playing the playoffs and what his role has been in Mike Brown's offense. 4-10 shooting, 0 of 2 from 3. And that's not going to work. Again, that's what I went to earlier. The shocking aspect at home, or for the Knicks being at home, is that the road team, it's kind of a general rule in the NBA playoffs. The road guys are always better at home. They're comfortable. They're sleeping in their own beds at night. There's a routine. On the road, it's not the same case. And there's a pressure aspect to it where it felt like it was almost reversed last night at MSG, where it's obvious we know about the celebrities and the atmosphere is crazy. Oh my gosh, the Knicks are going to sweep and win the title. They're one of the greatest teams ever. And it felt like that energy did kind of mess with them a little bit. Whereas the Spurs, that I talked about earlier, seem pretty comfortable. Wemby's attacking early. Castle is finishing through contact. Champagne's knocking down threes. Like, I feel like there was a level of comfort there for San Antonio that there wasn't for New York, in large part because of the atmosphere, because of the expectations, and almost to a degree, not even to knock the Knicks fans, at least the Knicks fans that didn't try and kill Spurs fans after the game. Lord have mercy. Relax, guys. I don't want to say it was negative, energy on their part, but it didn't help the Knicks mentally deal with the close aspects of that game. And so, listen, anyone trying to make this about, the Knicks lost because of officiating, like I've said it 1,000 times. I'll say it 1,000 more if I have to on the show. I've said it for 6.5 years here. Let's loser mentality. If you blame the officials for a loss, loser mentality. And so, and kudos to, I watched Jalen Brunson's press conference after the game. He wasn't making excuses. He's the leader of a team. And I don't even want to knock Mike Brown that much, because he even said after the bite that we played, he said, listen, I'm not a guy who blames officials. Based on what I've seen, that appears to be the case. He's not this coach that every time they lose, he's not like, the Knicks are like the Buffalo Bills, where every time they lose a playoff game, we got to have an NFL rule change. That's not what it is. But just in this individual instance, that's loser mentality. There's no two ways about it. And so I don't think there's a reason to panic if you're a Knicks fan. I know there's been a lot of overreact. I think Stephen A. Smith said today, like, that version of the Knicks can't win the championship, where it's like, yeah, there's some truth to that, but I also expect Mikal Bridges to be much better in game 4. It's so weird with Jalen Brunson. We haven't even gotten to him. You're 20 minutes in the show. We haven't really gotten to Brunson, other than the flagrant foul, which I think will eventually be assessed to Wemby. Jalen Brunson, who's just the definition of clutch. We know that in the fourth quarter games, he's shooting in excess of 50% from the field in the fourth quarter in these playoffs. We could show you his numbers yesterday. Call me crazy. That's Cap. My bad. Call me crazy, folks. I didn't think Brunson played amazing. I mean, now some of that's the 5 turnovers there, but you're like, man, 32, 5 and 5, 11 of 25 isn't like crazy efficient, but that's about what you kind of expect. He's 3 for 5 from 3. By the way, Brunson late. It's funny. Dylan was in the comments. I was actually texting him, or he texted me before the fourth quarter. He's like, what do you think's going to happen here? Because if I recall, the Spurs were up 1 going in the fourth. I said, San Antonio better create some separation or Brunson's going to beat him. And that's kind of what happened. The Spurs were able to pad a lead. They're up, 7 to 10 points for like their most of the fourth quarter. Brunson made a few shots. It's like, oh my gosh, this thing's going to maybe get out of whack for San Antonio. And then Castle hits the kind of the dagger 3, and that's that. Maybe it's because the Spurs defense, I think it's become abundantly clear. Rough up Brunson. Especially, we forget these finals, the momentum changes so often and so much. We forget, game 1, bangs up his knee, gets his knee rolled up on, and then gets his ankle rolled up on in a span of 15, minutes of real time. Fought through it, hit the clutch shots at the end of game 1, the free throw at the end of game 2, and then he did score 32 last night. Like, just from a scoring perspective, best game he's played in these finals. But there's second best game. I believe he scored more in game 1. But then there's also the element of, but it looks like a lot of work to get there. And some of that, too, for the Knicks and for Brunson. We knew this was going to be an adjustment. Eastern Conference Finals, you're playing the New York Knicks. I said before that series, I said, it's an inevitability. Not just because he's the best player, but because of the matchup, the Brunson would be Eastern Conference Finals MVP. It's like, wait a second, I get to be guarded by James Harden and Donovan Mitchell. It's Shaquille O'Neal. Barbecue chicken alert. It's easy money. Well, now when you're facing Castle and Harper and all of these guys that they can throw at you defensively, and sometimes Wemby, it's a different battle. It's a different matchup, offensively. And even it's with the great players. They're always going to score. Brunson is arguably the 5 best players in the NBA. You can make that case. But if you wear them down enough physically, and also Brunson's mentally tough. I don't think this has seeped in yet through 3 games, but psychologically that can take its toll on you. Maybe your productivity dips as time goes on. That's been a discussion with Wemby. Wemby's actually gotten better as the finals has gone on through the first 3 games. Brunson, he hasn't gotten worse, but is there the possibility that maybe he struggles a little bit in game 4? I think it's on the board. So don't panic if you're a Knicks fan. You need to get game 4, though. You really need to get game 4. I know it's kind of become a cliche. Anytime it's a 2-1, I feel like I've heard it nonstop over the last decade. If there's NBA Finals and it's a 2-1 series, everybody always says, oh man, the winner of game 4 is going to win this thing, which is, well, yeah, duh. The winner's going to either be up 3-1 or 2-2, and whoever tied the series is going to have all the momentum. Like, yeah, that kind of is lazy analysis, in my opinion. So we'll see how it plays out. I think the Spurs are in good shape for game 4. I think Brunson will play fine. I think Bridges will play much better. Oh, by the way, OG Anunoby was great last night. The question is Cat. And so anyone trying to make this about officiating, I think I think that's loser behavior. No two ways about it. Dylan's in the comments. Are you still rolling with Spurs in 7? I got to be honest with you, Dylan. I said it early in the show. After game 2, I even said before game 2, I said, if the Spurs lose this, it's over. I'm not saying they're going to get swept, but the series is over. Pick integrity. I'm sticking with it. I'm sticking with Spurs in 7. You'll hear my prediction for game 4 at the end of the show. I'm sticking with Spurs in 7 just in the sense that, listen, we expect this to be, to be honest, I picked going into the series. I said Spurs would get game 1, Knicks would get the next 2, Spurs would get game 4. And I said it would go, Knicks would get a road win in game 5, Spurs get a road win in game 6, and win game 7. This is where I thought the series would be, is 2-1 Knicks. Now, I didn't think it happened in this fashion, but because the series and the games, the margins of error has been that thin, these two teams are evenly matched. It's not like, oh man, Knicks blew them out in the first 2 and San Antonio eked by and just out of pure desperation won game 3. We've seen series like that. That's not been the case. Like the Knicks kind of had to make a comeback in game 1. Spurs made a comeback in game 2, but lost. And then game 3, after, I'll be honest, man, it looked like when the Knicks go on that late first half run and they're up 7 at halftime, Charles Barkley at halftime, this game's over. It felt like, man, with the momentum in MSG, Knicks are up 7. The Spurs have kind of struggled in the second half of games this series. It's like, oh gosh, close that gap. It felt like in 2 minutes to start the third quarter. So San Antonio deserves a lot of credit and adulation for their mental toughness throughout that game. All right, we're going to take a 1-minute break. When we come back, one of the more fascinating and also really frustrating stories coming out of college football regarding Texas Tech quarterback Brendan Sorsby. We'll get to that in just 1 minute on Carving Up the Context after the break. Don't go anywhere. Back to Carving Up Live. Appreciate everybody for stopping by on this Tuesday. I almost said Monday and Wednesday. I'm so used to it's like in the in-between area. It's odd. Again, program update. The schedule for the show the last week and a half has been a little funky because of the scheduling of the finals. Obviously, we had the Saturday morning show, which was really fun. I might maybe do some of those in the future. That was a really fun show, fun interactions. The segments were great. The only thing that was down about the Saturday show is that for some reason, and I don't know why, after the audio on the show and speaking this mic was fine. We played a long Karl Anthony Towns soundbite. I don't know if this affected it. It was like a minute long. After the Towns soundbite played, I guess the mic was coming from my laptop, which I'm using right now as kind of the monitor, and it wasn't coming through this mic, which was very weird because a lot of times sometimes there'll be audio issues and the StreamYard service that I use will kind of give me a heads up like, hey, either the audio is switched or is off or you're muted. In this case, it didn't, and it just switched mics like on its own. So that was odd. If that happens on this show, give me a heads up in the comments. Hopefully we can make sure that's the case. Audio fine now? Yep, should be fine now. But other than that, the Saturday show was fun. We're doing the show today, and then we'll be back as well on Thursday, same time as usual, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, to react to Game 4 And then game 5 will be on Saturday. We'll come back on Monday because game 6 would be on Tuesday at MSG. So, and then after that, schedules will be, same as usual. Back on Wednesday, Friday, and then go from there. I know that was a lot, but just kind of give you all a heads up about where the show's going in terms of what our schedule is going to be. Also, before we get into carving up the context, check out our Carving It Up merchandise. Scan the QR code on the top left corner of your screen. It'll take you to the website. We've got hats. We've got T-shirts. We got anything that you can possibly imagine as it pertains to Carving It Up merch. We greatly appreciate it. We've also got amazing merch for our other awesome content creators on the grid. Barry Grant Jr. with the All Even Podcast, Alfred Parsar Jr. with the Metropolitan Report, the Cowboys Cam Fan. Great shows. Check out their content. Amazing stuff on the Grid website. If you just want Grid Network merch, we got that too. Hats, T-shirts, anything you imagine. I'm used to saying hoodies, but it's June. No one's wearing hoodies unless your house is freezing. The air conditioning is too much. You might need a hoodie. I found myself in those situations from time to time, so feel free. Okay. It's funny. This is the second straight week. We do Carving Up the Context on Wednesdays, about 30 minutes into the show. In this case, Tuesday, there's a story that I find interesting and we need to get deeper into. So I'm like, let's do it today. The second straight week that we're doing a Carving Up the Context on a subject regarding college football, particularly the NCAA. So without further ado, as the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, primetime Deion Sanders says, give me my theme music. On this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, we're going to be talking about the really strange and odd story that has developed over the last couple of months regarding Brandon Sorsby. Brandon Sorsby, now the quarterback of the Texas Tech Red Raiders. He transferred from the Cincinnati Bearcats. Had a pretty good season last year. Had about 27 touchdown passes, 5 picks. The Bearcats kind of tailed off at the end of the regular season, but he had individually a solid year. Transfers to Texas Tech. We know the NIL money they've got there. They're going to pay him about $5 million to play. But then it comes out, just to get to the beginning of the story, it comes out that he had been gambling on his team going back to when he played college football at Indiana. So he started with the Hoosiers. This is pre-Kurt Cignetti. First 2 years in Indiana. Next year, 2 years at Cincinnati. This year, he's with Texas Tech. Court documents show they were investigating whether there was some sports gambling going on. Reading from my notes here. Court documents show that he made at least 40 wagers. 40! On Indiana Hoosiers football games while he was a freshman with Indiana in 2022. He funneled over $60,000 through a FanDuel account registered to a friend and used accounts belonging to family members to place bets. So there's a lot going on here. It also talks about how in the state of Texas, there was some illegal betting going on, is that Sorsby allegedly sent roughly $5,000 to out-of-state proxies to place wagers on his behalf while he was physically in Texas, which led to this whole conversation, led to this investigation by the NCAA into, is there some eligibility concerns that could come of this? And as it turns out, yesterday, a Lubbock judge by the name of Ken Curry ruled that, or granted, I should say, Brandon Sorsby, his injunction against the NCAA, which makes him eligible to play in the 2026 college football season. Strangely enough, the court date for when the court date that when it's been postponed is 2 weeks after the national championship games, which sure there was no coincidence about that. You know, Texas Tech spent a lot of money, had a pretty good season last year, hoping to improve at quarterback from a year ago, improve their roster, and try and make a run in the Big 12 and what have you. I'm sure the fact that the national championship is 2 weeks prior to this court hearing is completely irrelevant and had nothing to do with their decision-making. I digress. So this has inevitably led to a lot of outrage around college football. And we'll show you one quote from Georgia's athletic director, a guy by the name of Josh Brooks. He says, and I quote, "I think there needs to be serious conversations about not playing Texas Tech in any sports, not just football. This is not about Texas Tech. It's about protecting our own locker room. We cannot in good conscience put our student athletes on a field where the competitive integrity of the contest is compromised and overridden by the courts. If a state court wants to dictate eligibility rules, they can play themselves. All FBS schools should not only take the field against programs operating under a uniform, trustworthy standard of fairness. We've officially reached the point of no return." So I actually agree with him saying that. Josh Brooks isn't necessarily the best messenger for that, given the fact that Georgia has a pretty checkered history, recent history of guys getting in trouble, oddly for the exact same crime. Drive like maniacs out here, whether they're at Georgia, whether in the NFL. Take these guys' driver's license. Man, what is going on out here in Georgia? I don't know what they're teaching these guys in driver's ed, but it's not working. So not the best messenger, but the message in and of itself is correct. So here's the thing. This story, there's a lot of stories in college football. We discussed it last week in the Nick Saban segment. That because of how the sport has changed with NIL, transfer portal, conference realignment, and what have you, a lot of subjects around the new state of college football are divisive, are controversial, are sort of a back and forth. Maybe you can see both sides of the argument. In some cases, I think it's pretty black and white. In this instance, it's been a universal. They ruled what about this kid? Here's what I want to say about Brandon Sorsby. So reportedly on April 27th, so a month and a half ago, he checked into a rehab facility for a sports gambling addiction. Now, it should be noted that he checked in after he was caught. This wasn't a situation where it was, at least that we know of, where the kid's like, man, I've got a problem. It's gotten out of hand. I got to get checked in and fix this issue that's impacting my life in a very negative way. So kudos to the kid for getting help. I don't want y'all know I've talked about mental health extensively and a number of times on the show. You know, gambling is somewhat tied into that. If gambling addiction of any kind are tied into that, get the help if you need the help. I cannot stress enough. And so I commend Brandon Sorsby for this. Whether it was on his own volition, whether it was because arguably NCAA found some shady stuff and wanted to investigate, and that's why he did it. Regardless, he's getting checked out. He's getting help for this problem. It is universally agreed upon in sports. We talked about this back in October, and to me, a much more serious situation because we were betting the unders regarding Terry Rozier. It is universally understood. Athletes do not gamble on their own sport. And they darn sure don't gamble on their own team. Again, the case of Terry Rozier to me is far worse because he bet the under prop bets. So if Terry Rozier, bet under 6.5 points and then faked an injury early in the game, well, then that prop bet hits. And so that looked a little shady over time. That's why he's in the position he's in, the trouble that he's in. Some of the argument for Brandon Sorsby is, well, at least he bet on his own team. Objectively, that's not as bad. I agree. I've talked about this with Pete Rose that, hey, if Pete Rose had bet against the Cincinnati Reds, yeah, ban him from the Hall of Fame. No questions asked. But because he bet on himself, it's like, okay, maybe there's financial compensation for him winning and the Reds winning, and it gets a little complicated there because it does absolutely mess with the integrity of sports. It's really tricky, even more so with college sports, because yes, they get paid now. In the case of Brandon Sorsby, he's going to make $5 million a year from Texas Tech. More power to him, by the way. Y'all know my take on that. But if a freshman special teamer gets wrangling into something like this, if he's found out to be gambling, even if it's on his squad, let's say Texas Tech is the example. Let's say some backup special team guy doesn't get a lot of playing time, therefore we imagine not getting a ton of NIL opportunities, is like, hey, I want to cash in. Texas Tech is good. Let's bet on Texas Tech. If the kid loses, and now he's in a spot where he's got some debts he's got to pay, he's in gambling debt, and now the university is potentially involved, and college football is involved, that is a really, really, really messy situation that college football, nor any college sport, wants anything to do with. That's where it gets dangerous. Sorsby would be fine. Now, he's making $5 million now. In the past, not so much should he lose. But this, to me, goes to a much bigger problem with the NCAA, particularly to their management of college football, is that, let's put it this way, a big debate in this country, and has been for decades, centuries, maybe even, has been an argument about regulation versus overregulation. is that one side thinks we should regulate everything. The other side says we live and let live and what have you. Generally, I think it's nuanced somewhere in between. The NCAA, I'm not even going to give them the credit or the benefit of the doubt that, hey, just out of trying not to offend anybody or trying not make a problem worse, I'm just saying right now, out of pure incompetence, do not want to rule in anything that might be controversial or put them in a compromising spot. Anything. Be it the transfer portal, be it conference realignment. I don't have a problem with it. Transfer portal, schedule making, NIL, how they've managed NIL, not having a salary cap. I think they should. I think Saban, we talked about this last week, went way too far on his assessment of how the salary cap, or a salary cap at all, should be managed in college football. How the sport has changed pre-NIL. Guys could not make money off their own name, image, and likeness. If a dude sold his jersey with his, let's say, a player named Josh Johnson, not talking about the career backup quarterback, shout out to him in the NFL, but let's say a kid named Josh Johnson had let's say he wore number 7, back of his jersey says Johnson, and he wants to sell his jerseys off his name, image, likeness, make a buck. He would get in trouble prior to 2021, which is absurd and anti-capitalist, if we're being honest. NCAA did nothing to address that. Matter of fact, they enforce rules and regulations prohibiting such activity, which would be fine anywhere else, which is what the Supreme Court thankfully ruled back in 2021. So they couldn't make a ruling on that. They have yet to get a reign. To me, the biggest problem with college football is the transfer portal. Is it not even the portal for players, but we discussed this last week in Saban's blatant hypocrisy on this subject, that coaches, Lane Kiffin, let's use him as an example, can leave the program in the middle of the night prior to a playoff appearance because, hey, he might be behind the 8 ball on recruiting. Then postpone recruiting. If you're the NCAA, this is not hard stuff. But they're incapable of making a rule on anything remotely controversial or difficult. And in this instance with Brendan Sorsby, I want to emphasize this again. Wishing the kid nothing but the best. This is a tough situation. Hate it for him. Again, he put himself in this spot back when he was a freshman, 2022. And we know, 18, 19-year-old college men especially, not the most mature individuals in the world, got himself in a situation they probably didn't think that would get this deep. And this is where he's at now. The idea that there are no repercussions to me, the cardinal sin of sports is athletes, coaches, anybody intimately involved with the sport gambling on. Because if there's one thing that professional leagues, college sports want to preserve is the integrity of their sport. Is that we hear it every year. I mean, you even heard it a little bit last night with the finals with controversy with officiating. Oh, it's rigged. This commissioner wanted to tip the scales so that we could get another game of the finals, or in the case of the NFL, so we can get more of Taylor Swift and the Chiefs, and it's rigged, and Goodell has his hand on the scale, which is all nonsense, obviously. But stuff like this, no repercussions for an incident like this, is what fuels such conspiracy theories. It's what fuels such belief sets on this stuff. And so if Texas, and they won't do it, they won't. So often it's the folks that profess self-righteousness that have the biggest skeletons in their closet. We know that. If Texas Tech wants to not make an example out of Brendan Sorsby, but show, hey, we realize there was a screw up here, kid messed up, but he also, through these actions, has arguably messed with the integrity of college football or the trust in it. We're cutting him from the team. I mean, the idea that legally, and by the way, of course, this ruling was made in none other than Lubbock, Texas, where the Texas Tech Red Raiders play. So, of course, this was a ruling in Tuscaloosa or Alabama or Knoxville, Tennessee, or Gainesville, Florida. Sorry, I'm just using SEC schools. Columbus, Ohio. The ruling would probably be kind of similar. Because the judge might be a judge, but the judge also is pulling for his or her college football team, of course. That's where the NCAA's got to step in and do something. And it's where, if you guys can't do it, fine. We know you're incompetent. Appoint a commissioner of college football. Honestly, appoint an individual with, or maybe even a ruling body as well, to run this sport. Because it's not as out of control as Nick Saban would like you to believe that it is in his testimony to Congress last week, most related to NIL. But there are changes that objectively need to be made. The transfer portal is out of whack. There's no rules. There's no regulations. Eligibility, no rules, no regulations. Coaches staying or leaving, no rules and regulations. The recruiting timeline is completely out of whack. And let's be honest, there probably does need to be a salary cap for NIL, which needs to go up, adjust to revenue. That's where I disagree with Saban. Salary cap should go up just like it does in professional sports. And players have to be punished for gambling. Like that to me is not I don't think anyone views that as a controversial statement. The NCAA let it get this deep to where a judge in Texas in an appellate court said, yeah, you can play in 2026. No repercussions whatsoever. So in this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, while there are problems with NIL regulation, there's a lot of problems with the transfer portal and what have you. This is a gigantic problem for the NCAA, and they have nobody but themselves to blame for letting it get to this point, because they are, as recent history showed us, just in college football, incapable and incompetent when it comes to making hard, tough, difficult decisions. And it's why there's so much uncertainty now. And so, listen, again, I'm pulling for Brandon Sorsby. I'm hoping he gets the help that he needs, and that this is something that he can learn from and maybe even be an advocate for in the future, warning future college athletes against this. But there's got to be adults in the room making these decisions. And the NCAA shows repeatedly, adults are nowhere to be found. And that's where we're at. So I when I saw that, I was watching the pregame. I was actually watching Sports Center yesterday prior to Inside the NBA. It was the 6 p.m. Sports Center. And when the breaking news came in that he had been ruled eligible for 2026, I was stunned. I was like, what? Not just legal grounds, but when it comes to sports, moral and ethical grounds. Can you reach to be able to let this guy play? It's absurd. So it's not, again, my anger is not towards Sorsby so much as it is the precedent that this sets. College football needs a commissioner in the worst way. The sport's rolling. The sport's doing great. It's second to the NFL in popularity by a relatively comfortable margin. NBA's doing great. Baseball's doing great. But college football's number 2. But there are legitimate problems that the NCAA's got to address, and they can't. They're incompetent. They won't do it. So there you go. They wouldn't do it pre-NIL. They wouldn't allow athletes to make a buck off their own name, image, and likeness because of the integrity of student athletes. Oh, get over yourself. This is America. You can make a buck off your own personal abilities if you so please. That's how it's supposed to work. I think this is absolutely absurd in every way, shape, and form. Okay. I'll take a drink of water after that. I'm fired up. Let's shift now to the NFL. Staying in football, shifting to the NFL, talking about a quarterback, Joe Burrow. Cincinnati Bengals. According to Adam Schefter, he reported this a few hours ago, and I figured it'd be an interesting topic for the show. The Bengals have restructured the contract of Joe Burrow, creating $10 million in cap room. This move allows Cincinnati to operate without putting itself in a tough spot cap-wise, and he says that this is due in part to the cash needed for the Dexter Lawrence trade. We know they obviously traded for Dexter Lawrence from the Giants. They gave up their first-round pick. Dexter Lawrence is an outstanding, interior defensive lineman. He'll help them a lot. And so I don't know how much that's going to help Cincinnati this year necessarily, because, I mean, we're in June. The roster's pretty much set. I mean, if they wanted to go out and get Stephon Diggs or somebody, someone's going to pick up Diggs, I guess, but you've already got Chase and Higgins, unless you just want depth. And if God forbid one of those top 2 guys go down, okay. I do think there is a bit of overcorrection on both sides of the Joe Burrow conversation. Not overcorrection, emphasis on it's Burrow's fault for the Bengals struggles or it's the Bengals' fault entirely. I tend to think it's 75-25 Bengals, but Joe Burrow's not completely blameless in Cincinnati going from a team that makes the Super Bowl, almost wins it in 2021, and then barely lose the AFC Championship game in 2022 to they haven't gone to the playoffs since. Because we could show you Joe Burrow individually has been phenomenal. Of course he is. He's Joe Burrow. But you see the key stat there at the bottom, the two key stats. A, he's only 3 games over 500. Not all that's his fault, but some of that is. There have been games where he's thrown a brutal interception late. There was a game against the Bills, I remember, where the Bengals had complete control and Burrow kind of melted in the fourth quarter. But he's missed 16 games due to injury. And not all of that is bad offensive line related. Some of it is. I remember showing a graphic when he got hurt in week 2 against Jacksonville last year, showing that he had gotten hit more times per game in, I think, a 6-year stretch or whatever the stat was, more than Deshaun Watson and Andrew Luck, 2 guys whose careers in some ways were kind of ruined by their offensive line. Burrow taking more hits per game at that point than they had. And so that does play into it. But an appendectomy, and again, he can't help that. Like that's a really unfortunate aspect of health sometimes. Stuff you have no control over flares up and you have to address it immediately. That's what happened with Joe Burrow prior to, I believe it was 2022 or 3. But there is the element of, yeah, he's also not that physically reliable for Cincinnati. And I think if you look at the Bengals schedule going into the season, I'm hearing a lot of folks, oh man, Bengals, they should be the favorites to win the NFC North. Y'all know I'm down on Baltimore. I don't think Baltimore will be as bad as they were last year at 8-9. Baltimore, to me, hey, they got Trey Hendrickson. Lamar should be healthy. New coach, infuse the new energy in the organization. I think Baltimore will be fine. I don't think they're a contender in the AFC. I think they'll be fine. And I still maintain, I think for all the problems I have with the Steelers front office management and the Aaron Rodgers situation, the Steelers to me are still the clear-cut number 2 in the division. And the Browns we know are awful. Look at Cincinnati's schedule. Not loving it, man. Not loving it. You start at home against Tampa. Let's be generous and give them a win. On the road against the Houston Texans, that defense, that's a loss. At the Steelers, I think the Steelers defense will be much better than it was a year ago. You know, re-signed Highsmith, not Highsmith. What's my man's name? Shoot. Nick Herbig. Recently in Pittsburgh, helps the Steelers defensive line long-term. I think the Steelers will win that game at home. So now Cincinnati's 1-2. They've got a home game then against Jacksonville at home. They beat the Jags last year. I was actually in the game that Joe Burrow got hurt. I think Jacksonville will take a step back. I'll give the Bengals a win there. At Miami, that's a win. At the Ravens own them. Like we know the last few years, Lamar Jackson, Ravens, I know they got the win on Christmas last year. By and large, the Ravens have owned Cincinnati for the last half decade. So the Ravens win that game. Bengals drop to 3-3. Home against Tennessee, I think the Titans will actually be better next year. I don't necessarily think they'll be a playoff team, but I think they'll be a solid, good, competitive AFC South squad. That's in Cincinnati. Not like the Titans have that much of a home field advantage anyway. Hopefully that changes with the new stadium. I'll give Cincinnati a W there, 4-3. Atlanta in Real Madrid. It's a long travel for the Bengals. I'm going to actually give them a loss. I think Stefanski's a good coach. I think Atlanta is a solid team this year, 4-4. Pittsburgh at home, Sunday Night Football, I'll give them a win there. I think the Steelers and Bengals will split, 5-4. Monday Night Football at the Commanders. I'm going to give Washington a win there. Washington actually beat Cincinnati on a Monday Night Football game 2 years ago in Cincinnati. I know these teams aren't the same. I understand that, but Jaden Daniels, hopefully he's healthy at this point in the year. I'm going to give Washington a win, 5-5. So you see the track we're going down. Bengals are mediocre. Home against the Saints, I think there's a loss. I think the Saints should be the favorites to win that division. At the Browns, doesn't it feel like they always split with Cleveland? And if it's at Cleveland, that's a loss. That's now 5-7. Kansas City at home, I think that's a loss, 5-8. Now they're pretty much out of the playoffs. And they still got to play the Browns and the who are a division team and the Ravens at the end of the season. So it's a lot of this comes down to complete mismanagement of roster construction in Cincinnati, whether it's letting multiple defensive starters go out the back door, including Trey Hendrickson, who you lose for absolutely nothing. Listen, the Bengals knew Trey Hendrickson was not going to be with them in 2026. Trade him. Some team would give you solid compensation. You get something for Trey Hendrickson. Hopefully you can turn that into one or multiple productive NFL players. Your quarterback with the bad O-line and sometimes absent the O-line has struggled to stay healthy. And so what do? Let's keep our number 2 receiver. T. Higgins is excellent. But in 2024, Burrow played all 17 games. Chase led the league in receiving. T. Higgins was great, best year of his career. And even defensively, Trey Hendrickson led the league in sacks. And what'd that get you? 9-8, missed the playoffs. And I respect them for making the Dexter Lawrence trade. I think Dexter Lawrence in the here and now helps the Bengals more than their potential draft pick would have. And I think there's also, in that division, the two best quarterbacks, Bengals in the division, Bengals got one of them, obviously, in Burrow. Ravens run the football. Steelers, I think, can run the football. And the Browns, they certainly run it better than they throw it. So that's, we know that. That's going to be all the entire component that helps with the Dexter Lawrence trade. But Burrow restructuring the deal, like I saw this, I'm like, this feels like it's kind of for nothing. Feels like the Bengals are going down the tracks for anywhere between 7-10 to 9-8. Like that's where it feels like this organization's been at for a while now. I mean, don't forget when they made those the Super Bowl in 21 and then the AFC title game in 22, defense was much better back then. They had good, legitimate Pro Bowl type guys, and now they're all gone. They let them go. A, because the front office is cheap, and B, because the roster construction is atrocious. And so that's where we're at with Cincinnati. All right, we're going to take a 1-minute break. When we come back, before we get out of here, Game 4 NBA Finals prediction coming up in just 1 minute on Carving Up Live. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Appreciate everybody for stopping by on this Tuesday. Again, as a heads up, we'll be back on Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time to react to Game 4 of the Finals, which I'm going to predict right now, ladies and gentlemen. What are we going to have in Game 4 of these 2026 NBA Finals? I'll tell you in just a moment. Is that, so the Knicks are up 2-1, Spurs won Game 3, 115 to 111. And I'll be honest, man. I picked Spurs in 7 before the series started. But losing the first 2 games at home, it's like, gosh darn it, man. No team's ever lost the first 2 games at home of an NBA Finals and come back to win. Barkley Suns pushed the Bulls 6, but they were never going to win that series. Michael Jordan up 2-0, he wasn't going to blow that. But also, too, would the Spurs be kind of overwhelmed by the Madison Square Garden atmosphere? And it turned out, oh no, actually it was the Knicks who were overwhelmed, I feel like, by the burden and the expectation of MSG and the celebrities, and everybody's expecting the Knicks to go up 3-0, and then they can win the Finals on Wednesday for the first time in 53 years, and then New York turns into a celebration or an anarchy, one of the two. Maybe they're one and the same. I don't know. And the Spurs looked more comfortable. Wemby, we talked about earlier, was much more aggressive, and that's why San Antonio won. So what happens in Game 4? This tends to, in a lot of finals, be kind of the swing game. I mean, just with my Golden State Warriors, you can think of 2 series where that was the case. Back in 2015, Warriors down 2-1 to the Cavs. Steve Kerr inserts Andre Iguodala in the starting lineup. Warriors don't lose again the rest of the series. 2022, Warriors are down 2-1. Steph Curry has the greatest game of his career, 43-10, and the Warriors don't lose a game again the rest of that series. You also had finals where, I remember recently it was the Bucks and the Suns. Suns are up 2-0. Milwaukee's at home in Game 4. Giannis has the second greatest block in finals history. Bucks don't lose the rest of the way. Like, there are these moments or performances that can swing a finals if you're down 2-1. Is there anybody more capable of that than one Victor Wembanyama? I did see this, however, or hear this. We'll play you the bite in just a moment. Stephon Castle, he had an excellent Game 3. Really bounced back after a rough end to Game 2, him and Wemby. He was interviewed by Malika Andrews after Game 3. She asked him a question about the confidence going into Game 4, general question, and this was his response.
Do you walk into Madison Square Garden expecting to win Game 4?
Yeah, definitely. I expect us to win the next 3.
Okay. And if you've watched a lot of Spurs post-game interviews, it's been a lot of, yeah, we're fine. We know we're the better team. Like we talked about that with Wemby in the OKC series, through the ebbs and flows, losing game 2, but especially losing games 3 and 5 against the Thunder. Wemby never wavered. Like, it was always just this, I mean, that to be an alliteration, but there was always just this calmness and, hey, we're good. First to 4 wins, they haven't got there yet. We've still got a pulse. We're still alive. And I think that's the mindset of the Spurs team going into game 4. What I expect from the Knicks, I expect Mikal Bridges to be much better than he was in game 3. It's hard to be much worse than 1 of 5 for 2 points. Mikal Bridges is going to be better. He had a big game 2. He'll be good. I do have some questions about Karl-Anthony Towns, and that feels really unfair, but it just goes to show you how much momentum in a series can swing in sports from game to game. Cat through the first 2 games, oh my God, he's the best player in the Florida's Finals MVP. Game 3, foul trouble, got away with a lot of contact throughout the night on Wemby. Just occasionally the officials decided to call it from time to time, but I don't worry about his confidence so much as I worry about, has Wemby figured him out in the defensive end? Or has Wemby just figured out and Cat just happens to be the victim of this? Has Wemby figured out, Cat can't stop me down low. Nobody can stop me down low. I'm 7'5" for crying out loud. Right? The first 5 attempts, I believe it was, for Wemby, he's diving to the rim. He's catching lobs. He's driving to the basket hard. He obviously got to the free throw line. Thought he should have gotten there more. I thought there was a lot of contact, but that's what it was. That concerns me a little bit. And I also think there was last night going in MSG, the atmosphere was excitement and joy, and here we go. We're going to do this. The Knicks are finally going to do this. I don't know if that'll be the atmosphere going to game 4. There'll be excitement. There'll be, joy. The fact that you don't have to go around, a wall in order to get in the arena and go through TSA, basically. That'll be nice. But once we get to tip-off, let me tell you something right now. There's going to be a nervous energy in that arena. Not like it would be for like a game 6 if they're down 3-2. Then it's just almost outright panic. But very much we know they won 13 straight, but it is the finals. Spurs are obviously miles better than anybody we played this playoffs. We really need to go up 3-1. If we go up 3-1, game 5, okay. We'd almost not prefer to lose game 5, but we would like to close it out in game 6, up 3-2. This is what the city's been waiting for. I think the Spurs continue the strategy that they've employed all finals, but especially after Jalen Brunson got banged up in game 1. Rough him up physically. He will still get to his spots and make shots. Make it as hard as we can on him. Even if he had 32, even though he was, by Jalen Brunson standards, relatively efficient, in that game, 11 of 25, 3 for 5 from three-point range, it was a struggle to get to where he wanted to get on the floor. It was. And also creating that separation, I think it's going to be key for the Knicks to get off to a hotter start. The Spurs have gotten off red hot to start all 3 of these games, and really this whole playoffs. That's been their MO. I think there's a very, very good possibility this is the best game of these NBA Finals. Feels like I say that a lot about Game 4s. I think this one is going to be an all-time nail-biting classic. And I believe, when it's all said and done, the Knicks will have a 1-point lead with, call it 15 seconds left, Spurs ball. De'Aaron Fox is going to throw a lob to Victor Wembanyama. He's going to stuff it home. He's going to get the M1, knock down the free throw, and the San Antonio Spurs, ladies and gentlemen, are going to even this finals. 2-2. Spurs win 110-108 in the best game of these finals. That's saying something because we've gotten 3 close games to start. Spurs win. Momentum for this series shifts completely as the finals heads back to San Antonio for game 5 in what turns into, at that point, a best of 3 series. My faith has been restored in the Spurs. I'm back in again. San Antonio wins game 4. I can't wait. I cannot wait for this game. And with that, that's all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Thursday. Again, strange day because of the way the finals are scheduled. But Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube, as well as on Facebook, Twitch, X, and on Instagram. Thanks, everybody, for stopping by. We're going to have a special guest on Thursday. My man, Pierce DeLuna, is to be joining. He's the host, formerly of SI, but now the host of the First and Tuna podcast. Big Rams guy. Been a decent week and a half for the Rams, and now the rumors about Aaron Donald coming back, we'll get into those with Pierce on Thursday, so stay tuned for that. We really appreciate him giving us his time for this. Stay tuned. We'll have reaction to Game 4. Pierce joining us. Predictions for Game 5. It's going to be a fun show. 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific time on Thursday night. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see y'all then. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. And peace out. Oh, and by the way, if you go to a finals game, please don't fall asleep. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.